Welcome to Naresh Technologies. I'm Bangar Raju and this is a part 2 video for our Linq to SQL. In the part 1 video of the Linq to SQL, I was just demonstrating about why to use Linq in our applications, because Linq basically is a query language. As per our discussion, it is a query language, and this language has been introduced by Microsoft for communicating with SQL Server. But before Linq, we have already an existing language called as SQL for interacting with SQL Server. So I was just telling you the differences between using SQL and communicating with SQL Server, using Linq and communicating with SQL Server from our .NET applications. Okay, fine. So this is what I demonstrated in the part 1 video of my classes, and now in this I just wanted to show you how to work with Linq to SQL. Remember, if at all you want to work with Linq to SQL, the very important thing to remember is go for converting all the relational types into object-oriented types. So last day we have been talking about it. What is it? Here a table is a class, a column is a property, rows or records are instances, and stored procedures are methods. So the important thing to remember is to work with Linq to SQL. First, we need to convert all the relational objects of database into object-oriented types. Actually, you want to work with Linq to SQL and communicate with SQL Server. What do you have in SQL Server? Tables, procedures, and inside the tables, columns, rows, and etc. But as per discussion in the first video, tables are going to be classes for us. Columns are going to be properties for us, rows and records are going to be instances for us, and stored procedures are going to be methods for us. So all these are going to be the relational objects, and now we are going to treat them as object-oriented types. So if you want to do this, first the relational objects should be converted into object-oriented types. So how to do this? We can do this by performing an action called as ORM, stands for Object Relational Mapping. See, to work with Linq to SQL, first we need to convert all the relational objects of database into object-oriented types, and this process is known as ORM. What to do? All the relational objects should be converted into object-oriented types, and we call the process as ORM, Object Relational Mapping. And now you have a doubt how to perform ORM. To perform ORM, we are provided with a tool known as OR Designer. You call this as OR Designer, stands for Object Relational Designer. Okay, so this OR Designer will help you converting all the relational objects into object-oriented types. Let us see how to perform this. To do this, first I am opening a project in Visual Studio. Let us open a project in Visual Studio, a Windows Forms application, and I am naming the project as Linq to SQL project. Linq to SQL project, and click on the OK button. Let it open. Meanwhile, understand what I wanted to do is, in my SQL Server, I first created one database called as company DB. Okay, and under this company DB, I added a table called as employee, and this employee has some few columns in it like employee number, employee name, job, salary, and D name, department name. So these are the columns that are present for you. So meanwhile, you create a database called as company DB, you create a table called employee, with so and so columns, where this must be the primary key column, data type int, varchar with some size, job with some size, salary, money, and rename again varchar with some size. So create a database, create a table with so and so columns, and also insert some data into the tables. Okay. Meanwhile, make it ready. One database with a table with some data. Next, after doing this, what are the next thing you will do is open the Server Explorer in Visual Studio. Open the Server Explorer in Visual Studio. Go View menu and Server Explorer and configure the database in the Server Explorer. Configure the database in the Server Explorer. I already configured my database in the Server Explorer, and you can just verify here. Balu is the name of the machine, company DB is my database, and under this I have a table called as employee with so and so columns. Yes, number, name, job, salary, and rename. So meanwhile, you just go for configuring the database under the Server Explorer also. Fine. So our database and our table should be under the Server Explorer. Next, what to do? What you want to do now is, see, understand. I wanted to manage the data that is present in the table using Linq. See, if you are already familiar with ADO.NET, you can manage the data in the table by using ADO.NET also by writing SQL statements. But today what we are going to learn is how to manage the data in the table using Linq, language integrated query, or Linq to SQL. Okay. To do this, where should I start with? I should start with the process of ORM, Object Relational Mapping, which is a process of converting the relational types into object oriented. Okay. Let us see how to perform this ORM, how to perform the ORM. So to perform this ORM, first you need to add the OR designer under your project. Okay, come on, how to add the OR designer? Open the Solution Explorer and open the Add New Item window, and in the Add New Item window, you will be finding the OR designer. Actually, you are required to perform three things here. What are the three things? First, you are required to perform the ORM by adding the OR designer. Okay, we'll see how to do it. Second, to work with Linq, you need to add a reference for an assembly. Which assembly? System.data.link.dll. You need to add a reference for an assembly, system.data.link.dll. This is the second thing we need to do. We need to add a reference, and also we need to write the connection string into the configuration file. Why? Database communication always requires a connection string, and this connection string, the best place to place is always the config files. So this connection string should be present in the configuration file. Okay. So this is what you are required to do. First, you need to perform the ORM by adding the OR designer, and in this process you need to add a reference to system.data.link.dll, and we need to write the connection string into the config file. Okay, these are the three things to be performed. Come on. First, open the Solution Explorer, and after opening the Solution Explorer, have a look in the references. We don't have any reference for system.data.link, which should be added by us. Okay, which should be added. Next, if you open the app.config, in the app.config there is no connection string which should be written. So adding a reference and writing the connection string, these are the two things what we are required to do. Okay, remember, I'm just only showing you all the things what to do. How to do, I'll tell you. Come on. Now open the Solution Explorer. First let us add the OR designer. How to add? Right click, add new item. In the add new item, you will be finding an option called as Link to SQL classes. An option called Link to SQL classes. When you choose this, it is going to provide you an item with an extension .dbml, that stands for database markup language. Yeah, it's a markup language, database markup language, and the name is data classes 1.dbml, data classes 1.dbml. But I want to change the name. What name? You can give any name here, no issues, but the preferred name is always your database name. The preferred name is always your database name. So what is the database name? Company DB. It's not a rule here. Any name you can just use, but it is only a preferred choice. Company DB dot DBML, and click on the add button. It just adds you a window, an item in the document window, which has two panels in it. That's it. If you just watch it, this is OR designer with the two panels on it. Okay, so you can just see your company db.dbml. You have two panels coming over here. And now when you do this, what is going to happen, watch. Open the Solution Explorer and check it out. The reference for system.data.link is added. Right, we discussed like we need to add it. Yeah, just said you required, but we don't require to do that because the OR designer will directly provide you the reference to system.data.link. So it is not necessary to add the reference again. Okay, reference is already added. So OR designer brings all the references that are required to it. So it requires a reference for system.data.link, and that has been added for you automatically. Okay, and next, when you add this DBML file, under the DBML, you will be finding an option called companydb.designer.cs, an item called as companydb.designer.cs, a .cs file, a designer.cs file. Remember, designer.cs. Remember this designer.cs. Designer.cs, mainly programmer never writes code into designer.cs file. Even you work with Windows applications, web services, in all these particular cases, you will be having this designer files. And these designer.cs files, programmers never require to write the coding in it. Then who will write? See, designer.cs file is for auto-generating the code. Who generates it? Visual Studio. Visual Studio generates the code. When you are working with Windows, when you drag and drop the controls on the form, designer.cs file will be added with all the content. Means the coding will be written by the Visual Studio into the designer.cs file. So we don't write. It will warn you also. Don't make any changes. Same as this here also. This designer.cs file should not be edited. So don't edit this file. Okay, just only watch what is present. This is the code. So this is the file for auto generating the code by Visual Studio. Fine. You can see auto generated. This code was generated by a tool runtime version so and so. Changes to this file may cause incorrect behavior and will be lost if the code is regenerated. So this is going to cause you incorrect behavior, and all these things will be lost if the code is regenerated. Okay, so that's very important. And now if you just have a look on this, in this by default you will be finding one class here. What is the class name? CompanyDB.DataContext. What is this CompanyDB.DataContext? CompanyDB is your database, and data context is the actual class name. Means whatever name we are given for the DBML file, CompanyDB.DBML, the same name will become a prefix to the class data context. Actually, a class called as a data context is defined, and this has a prefix. What is the prefix? CompanyDB. Okay, actually this class inherits from system.data.link.dataContext. See, every class that inherits from an exception becomes an exception. Exactly. Every class that inherits from a data context is also a data context. Okay, but to differentiate, the DBML file name will be used as a prefix. What is this class? Actually, this class works like a connection. and helps you in connecting to the database whenever you create the instance of the class. In ADV.NET, to connect with the database, we use a class called connection class. Connection con is equals to new connection, and we pass the connection string. And that class is helping you in connecting with the database. Exactly. This class, what we are seeing here, what is the class? Company DB data context is a class which is going to help you in connecting with the database, but requires a connection string. Yes or not? And that connection string should be present in the config file. We did not write. If you write the connection string in the config file, the company DB data context will read the connection string from the config file. It will read all the connection string from the config file and helps you in connecting with the database by creating the instance of this class. That's what you're required to do. You're required to create the instance of this class to connect with the database. Remember this one. Okay, fine. So in this, some few constructors are present, nothing more. Some overloaded constructors present for you inside this class. So this is what. So some 3-4 constructors are there. Yeah. First one, second constructor, third constructor. Yeah, 4 constructors are present for you in this. Apart from this, nothing is there. Okay, fine. So what this class will do, we'll practically see. Next, come on to the DBML file. What I showed you, it adds you a file, an item with 2 panels in it. So what to do? Very simple here. Whatever tables you want to work with now, drag and drop all those tables in the left hand side panel of the OR designer, from where we configure our database in the Server Explorer, remember. And from the Server Explorer, we need to drag and drop on the left hand side panel of the OR designer. And if at all you want to work with any stored procedures, we require to drag and drop and place them on the right hand side panel of the OR designer. So what you are required to do? You need to drag and drop the tables onto the left hand side panel, and if there are any stored procedures to work with, on the right hand side panel. From where? From the Server Explorer. Let us do it. Open the Server Explorer. We already configured the database in the Server Explorer, and what you do now is simple. Drag this table and place it on the left hand side panel of the OR designer. Store process on the right hand side. Okay. When you leave it here, it will ask you, what you know? I'm going to write the connection string into the config file to you. Shall I also write the sensitive information like password also in the connection string? See, the connection string contains credentials with a clear text password and not using integrated security. You are using SQL authentication, not Windows authentication. So password is visible to the users. Do you want to save the connection string to the current DBML file and the application configuration file with the sensitive information? Shall I write this connection string with this password into the config file? That is what it is trying to ask you. Click no to save the connection string without the sensitive information. If you say no, what happens is connection string will be written there, but password will not be there. But if you click yes, it is going to write the connection string as well as password also into this. Actually, as per the Microsoft recommendations, Windows authentication is more secured when compared with SQL authentication. So if at all you use Windows authentication, all this problem will not be present. But if you use SQL authentication, compulsory password will be present over there and will be visible to the users. Okay. So you want to click on yes or no is your choice. I am clicking on yes. And now you will see a visible representation of your table. Is the table what you have just been taking. Employee with all the columns. What is happening? I'll tell you what is happening. See, 2 things are going to happen for you. First, if you go and open the config file, in the config file, you will be finding the connection string written by the OR designer. So right now, see, we are planning to write the connection string. We don't require to write that also. That connection string also is written by the OR designer. You can see there. It added you the connection string, which contains all the information. Data source is equals to Balu. This is my machine name. initial catalog is equals to company DB, database name, and user ID SA, password 123. Yeah, that's what, clear text password, visible to everyone. So make sure you want it or not. If you better go for Windows authentication, this problem will not arise. Okay. Now, what next? What next? Say. So this is the first thing happened. I said here two things are going to happen. First, connection string is written into the config file. The second thing what is going to happen, if you again go to the designer.cs file, what did we see earlier? We just saw a class with 4 constructors, company DB, a class with 4 constructors, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And now in this class, in this particular class, one more constructor is also added. Just let us check it out. First constructor, second constructor, third constructor, fourth constructor, and now one more constructor came into picture. One more new constructor has been added, the fifth constructor. Okay, 5 constructors. And what is the newly added, a parameterless constructor. Earlier we don't have a parameterless constructor, but now you have a parameterless constructor added for you in this process. You can see company DB data context, a new parameterless constructor has been added over there. Okay, and you can make use of this constructor for creating the instance. And once you create the instance, it will internally read the connection string from the config file. You are not responsible, and helps you in connecting with the database. It only reads the connection string also to you. And you will see a new property also. What is the property? A property is called as employees. Our table is employee, so there will be a property called employees. And this property employees returns a table of employee. A table of employee, generic type. A table of employee. Okay, a generic type, what it is going to return to you. And now you will find a new class. What is the new class? Employee is a new class. And this class employee will contain all the things for you. What is this? What is this employee? Confusion. Nothing here. Already we discussed, like every table will become a class now. An employee table now become an employee class now. And remember, every column will become a property now. Watch. See, we have 5 variables declared here, 5 private variables with an underscore. An underscore is basically used on a variable when you want to define a property on the variable. So right now, underscore ename, underscore number, name, job, salary and dname. So 5 variables with prefix underscore means 5 associated properties are going to be present for you. You can just see there the first property, enumber, read write property, ename, read write property, job, read write property, salary, read write property, dname, read write property. All the properties are defined for you. So what are this? Every column became a property. Every column became a property, and the rows and records will come for us in the runtime in the form of instances. In the form of the instances. Okay. When we load the data, all records gets loaded for you in the form of the instances. So how to load this data? To load the data, we can make use of this property. What property? Employees. This returns you a table. Okay, watch it. I have a form here, and on this form, I wanted to place a data grid view control. Data grid view. And now, on this data grid view, I want to load the whole data. Let me go to form load, and you see how simple getting the data. First, a connection should be established. How? By creating the instance of our company DB data context class. Company DB data context DC is equals to new company DB. Why to create the instance? That's what I already said to you. This works with like a connection and helps you in connecting with the database. Next, data grid view 1 dot data source is equals to DC dot. Okay, we have shown a property in the data context class. Do you remember? Employees. That's it. It is going to call this property, and all the data will be loaded into the data grid view control in the process. So if you run this, and you can watch out. the data getting loaded from the table into the data grid view control. You can just see. This is all the data that is present in my table loaded into my application. Okay, so this is how you work with Linq to SQL. Okay, thank you for watching the video. For more videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Naresh IT.